So today I'm talking with Kim Argetsinger, an amazing coach, and I wanted to have a conversation with her because I frequently hear people who have their own business talk about things like there's no other option but for things to be totally overwhelming, and that they just think that's the way it is. And I've known Kim for I don't know, many years now.
That's fine.
And yeah, and she, multiple six figures in her business. And yet she's not hustling. She's not overstressed, overwhelmed. And so I wanted to get on the call with her today in order to just have a conversation about how she manages that, some of the things that she does, where mindset comes into play. Because I know as a coach, she does a lot of work in mindset. And I know working in productivity that a lot of that has to do with your mindset. So anyway, today I'm talking with Kim. And so Kim, why don't we start with you telling us a little bit about your business and, just how you got to where you are.
First, thank you so much for having me. It's so nice to be here. And I think this is a really important conversation we don't always talk about enough, but it really impacts the longevity of our business as well. Because if we're hustling, we can hustle to a certain degree, but it's really tough to sustain results year after year. And I've been in business for 9 years. For context, I would not still be doing what I'm doing if we're not, some of the things we're going to talk about today. So I just appreciate the conversation. For those people who don't know me, my name's Kim Argetsinger. I'm a business coach, as you said. I've been coaching for, 10 or 11 years, but I've been officially in business for 9. I have scaled my business with a one-on-one only model, so a little bit non-traditional than other people who usually scale out of one-on-one into groups and programs to about 1.6 million in the past 6 years. And what I'm really proud of is I've not only make multi-six-figure years, but I also pay myself multi-six-figure years, meaning we're quite profitable. And the work I do with my clients is really just for them to do the same, to find their path, their way, do things on their terms to grow and scale and create reoccurring revenue that also has a really healthy profit margin, so they can not just make fun money to brag about on the internet, but have enough to pay themselves afterwards. And clients of mine get results anywhere from their first six-figure year to their first $1 million year and everywhere in between. And I blend, the mindset side of things with the strategy side of things. And I'm really big on integrating the both and how they play together to create those results.
That is great, because one of the key things I think that you said there is that you pay yourself multiple six figures. And I know that a lot of the people who talk about big numbers, they spend it all in ads or something like that. And that's not really what they're making. They're hustling, and yet they don't have anything to show for it. Or the people who are making a lot of money, they don't have either the mental bandwidth or the time to really enjoy their success.
1,000%. I call it scaling smarter, not harder, because what good is it if we're spending just as much as we make? Nothing wrong with having, a different profit margin, not taking home as much, but it doesn't make sense if we're spending just as much as we're making. And it doesn't make sense if we're so burnt out that we can't enjoy the fruits of our labor, or we're making our money in a way that just feels awful to us. So yes, I'm quite passionate about that. I think it'll feed the conversation we're going to have quite well.
Great. So what systems do you think, or systems and strategies, do you think have been crucial to you being able to scale your business like this?
Such a big question. So I'm going to think about how I want to answer this. So I think something that's really maybe helpful for everyone to understand is I only offer one-on-one. So I'm literally trading time for money. And so my time is, everybody's time is valuable, but my time has such a premium in that unless I'm going to work 24/7, I need to really understand how to manage my time so that I can prioritize the time that I am spending in my business on my clients and showing up in a place that I can really serve and support them to get big results, because I also use a revenue sharing model. So I'm really invested in their results, and that I have the time left over for the few CEO things I need to do. And so this isn't necessarily a strategy or system, but one of the biggest gifts I've given to myself is really understanding what are the few things my business needs to create results, and really looking at the data and studying what are all the things I could do that are fun to do, that are getting results, but that aren't contributing to the main results I need, or we're full, that don't make any more sense to keep spending time and energy on. And so I focus a lot on what is the 80-20, how can we do less better? And then with that, what do I, Kim, need to do in my business? What can only be done by me? And then what are the things that don't need to be done by me in these very few things that are driving results that I can automate, delegate, or hand off? But a big thing is I made more profit last year and took home more money last year, even though our revenue stayed about the same. And I worked fewer hours. And a big reason for that is we just did a really big audit on things, strategies that were working well, that we didn't need anymore, and cut out some big ticket items, both in terms of cost, but also my time and my team's time. So that made us more efficient and helped us literally get better results and take home more. So I'd say that's kind of like top level, high level.
Yeah.
That's helpful to hear.
And it is. And it's a funny thing. Like, I have been hearing about and talking about, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule for years. And I think intellectually it makes sense, but I think there's a whole nother level of knowing it and knowing it exists and implementing it. And I was just writing an email about this. I come from a generation where overachievers, it was about getting it all done. And I would work, in the corporate world late at night after everybody left in order to get caught up. And it was all about not letting anything drop. And I think that when you're trained at a young age, that's the way you're successful, is you just don't, you get it all done. And then in this modern world that we live in, there is literally no way to get it all done. And if you don't have a strategic practice in order to evaluate and eliminate all of that extra and eliminate that 80% that's not giving you as much results, you're going to be overwhelmed and you're going to be underperforming. That's just the world that we live in today. And it's a hard thing to do. That's not natural. I mean, I think our primitive mind is afraid of missing an email, someone being upset, or that, FOMO, right? Oh, so-and-so's on Instagram, or this person's on LinkedIn. I have to do that. And like you said, you need to really analyze, look at the numbers. Where are my results coming from?
I think you said it so well. And I think it's so true. I think there's a lot in our world that teaches that. I think there's a lot in our brain. I think if we have any sort of trauma, anxiety, any type of wiring that has taught us do more equals get more, or if we have a scarcity mindset, I think there's so much baked into this where we can talk about this and it can rationally make sense. But also when you're in it, our brain thinks, yeah, but also if I do more, won't I get more? And if I do more of this, will I get more? And I think when we're in business, we forget it's not the same as being an employee. Yeah. And so, getting everything checked off a to-do list is not as productive, and it's not going to bring the same results. Like, you're the only one it really matters for. And sometimes saying no to the checklist item, sometimes even saying no to money and an opportunity is the best way to increase your profitability and to make more money. But there's so much wrapped up in that. So I just really want to affirm, and we unpack that if we want, but like there just really is a lot to that.
So let me ask you this first. Have you always been a person that maintains that kind of balance where you don't overwork? Or was there a time early in your life where you didn't have that and you were overworking?
I was not being obnoxious. It's just so funny because I think we've talked about this at one point. So I think it's just also helpful for people to hear. I would call it a trauma response is a better way, but my wiring is I have a lot of capacity. I have a lot of energy. And my trauma response and my perfect my makeup is I can outwork anyone. It's it's like the Will Smith. Has anybody ever seen that? He was like on an interview and he's like, my superpower is that if you put me on a treadmill next to somebody else, I will just outrun you because I will stay on there until I die, is basically. It's like a horrible example.
Right.
My past wiring, when I started my business, I was working until 3 a.m. and I took such pride in I will do anything it takes to get this done. And look, I think there is an element, not to make that all of that wrong, my past self wrong. I think there is an element when we're creating things that sometimes we do have to work a little bit more at the start. It does take 80% of the fuel, or, to have blast off and go into the stratosphere. Sometimes we do have to put in some extra hours or work a little bit more at the start to get results. But I was also really willing to work on things that didn't matter, that didn't move the needle forward, because that was a self-soothing mechanism for me. It's where I got my worth. It's how I felt safe. It's if I felt like the bottom was going to fall out, it was a way to do that. If I felt like, oh, people are going to judge me because I'm making great money and I don't want them to hate me for it, but I can show them how hard I'm working.
Yes.
And validate it's okay I'm making all of this money. So there was a lot wrapped up in there that I really had to untangle. And so we're saying, oh, it's so easy, 80-20 principle. And also I had to unpack and unwind all of that so that I could actually say, oh, my business doesn't actually need anything more from me. If I'm doing more, is that because I want to, or is that because I don't feel like I need to validate my results, or because I feel like I have a lot of anxiety right now and I need to try to like fix it in a way.
Yeah, it's so nice to hear you talk about this, because I don't think a lot of people do. And there's so much of that kind of stuff that's wrapped in our ability to, have success without overworking. I've done a lot of work in this area, but I tell you, when the cleaning people are here and I am stretched out on the couch reading a book, I feel so guilty.
Yeah.
It's like that. And intellectually, I know that's crazy, but I feel lazy. I used to work literally. There were days that I worked 24 hours straight in the corporate world. And again, I had that badge of honor that, look at me.
Well, and I think that's a bit of a mind F, because our society also rewards that to a certain degree. And I think our brain can make the connection, at least mine did, that I have success because I did that. And so we start to make that equation that, but this actually works, and I'm getting the praise, and I'm getting the validation, and people don't hate me now, or I am getting success. And something my coach said to me, shout out to Lacey Seitz, just to give credit where credit is due, that just really helped me land the plane on some of this, is I don't have my results because I overworked. I have my results in spite of that. And I had just seen how much that was actually a sabotage pattern. And the more I unwind it, the easier it is for me to create. I literally took home more revenue last year and worked well. But I had the reason for that. The simple reason is I found what to cut. The complicated reason is I did a lot of therapy and a lot of coaching to unwind a lot of these patterns.
Yeah. It's interesting that even in the corporate world, I was talking with somebody who is a director at Microsoft, which when you hit a director level, it's, you're relatively high up at Microsoft. And her talking about her most productive year, where she got the most done, she was working the least amount of hours. And so it's funny that you wouldn't think that would translate into the corporate world, but yet it did.
There's so much there, and I don't want to take us down a rabbit hole, but last year, one of the really confronting things for me is some of my biggest weeks and days, I had like a 28K day, I wasn't working. I was on vacation. I was with family. Now, it's confusing, and I want to be really mindful. That's not because I wasn't working and I just manifested. I also have systems and process. I have lots of things working for me to create those results, the relationships I built. However, in the past, I would have kept working and not felt like it was safe to take that time off and enjoy. And then I would have had the same result, and made it then because I didn't take the time off. I didn't spend time with my family because I was willing to grind it out, as opposed to not because I enjoyed my time, but I could enjoy my time and still get those results. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally makes sense. Now, what percent would you say, you're where you are today? What percent would you say was the mindset shifts? And what percent would you say was actually, implementing different strategies or systems or that kind of thing?
I'm pausing because it's really hard to put a number on it. What I often say is I think mindset drives 80 to 90% of our results. And I think that's true because as we're speaking here, you can know something, you can have a strategy, you can understand something. I just got off 2 calls with clients, and the strategy part was very, very simple, and they know what they need to do. The reason they weren't doing that was all of the mindset stuff we needed to unpack. And so the biggest reason for my success has been the mindset. However, the biggest reason for my success has also been having the right strategy and the right systems in place and the right team in place. It's just I couldn't have used and implemented those or trusted them and not done too much had I not had the mindset to back it up.
Right.
And so they are also responsible for 80 to 90%.
Yeah.
It's you can't win a race with a car if the car doesn't also have tires and gas.
Right.
So the car,
no matter how good the engine is,
like it all really matters, but you need all of the pieces together. And so it's sort of like they're all equally important, because otherwise I think it becomes a really muddy conversation. Does that make sense?
Yeah. It totally does. And I mean, I see that in my business where I can give people strategies of, you will literally reclaim hours a day if you stop checking your phone constantly. But if we don't do the mindset work that allows them to feel safe, not constantly checking it, they can't implement it. And that's the same thing with checking email and social media, all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah. And it's just so intertwined. It's like what came first, the chicken or the egg? I mean, it's just such a hard answer to question. But I think we can't have one without the other. Something I always say is you can see everybody's strategy online. It's not that complicated. And you can go take a course and everybody can implement the same exact strategy. It's why businesses in a box don't work. But based on your mindset and your lens and your perspective and how you're implementing that as a result, or how you're not implementing that as a result, is the determiner for the results, but also the quality of the results. What we're talking about, you can make $1 million and burn your way out getting there. You can make $1 million and spend $1 million, but if you want to make $1 million and actually have take-home pay and feel good, that is going to require a very different fuel, mindset, energy with the very same like strategy and actions and systems.
Right. So how do you prioritize high impact tasks, knowing that we live in this environment where everything's coming at you, and there's all of these options for things that you could be doing with your time? How do you prioritize that?
This might sound really simple, but the immediate thought that came up to mind is I'm not even tempted by those options. I literally see them as lighting money on fire.
Wow.
Like I know, I help clients with this all day long. Like I've helped clients make much more money than me. Like I know how the sausage is made, so to say. I know all the things I could do, and I know what is literally required to make that effective and to get good results. And I know what that means in terms of my time and in terms of my money. And so I think that just really helps. And I think probably because I've been on both sides of it in terms of being in the place where I overworked and literally did all of the things. And I could see the difference in my bank account.
Yeah.
So I think that just helps me a lot.
Right. And I think something that you said there, you said, I know how the sausage is made. And I think that a lot of people, if you don't have the clarity, it's so much easier to get distracted and trying to do all of the things. But when you do, you know how the sausage is made and you've got that clarity. And I think that's where needing a coach, that until you get that clarity yourself, having somebody who has been there and knows how to do it in order to help you can make a huge difference in that.
I really agree with that. Something I say a lot to my clients is my clients are all super capable. It's not like I know better than them, but because I have an outside perspective, it's easier for me to help them spot the right problem and solve the right problem and find the right priority and like all of the noise. And I think that's where I still work with a coach for the same reason. I think that just makes it a lot easier. And so I think that's just another piece that helps me with this. Again, yes, I know how the sausage is made, but I also am very aware if I'm trying to, this is a horrible analogy, but if I'm trying to make sausage and I know how that's made, my whole job is to just focus on refining the system that makes the best sausage possible and nothing else. If I now go to try to figure out how to like grow clementines, all that is the biggest distraction in the entire world that makes it harder for me to make incredible sausages and to refine right. But that's what we do in business. We do that because we're feeling insecure. We're not feeling good enough because this isn't working and sausages aren't getting made fast enough. Right. And so I think I also am very aware of why things can feel alluring.
Yeah. And it's that analogy that you gave. No. But it's so obvious to us, right? That, if I'm trying to make sausage, don't focus on learning how to grow a clementine. And one of the things that I talk to people about is, you should never be doing more than 5 to 7 projects at once, and that includes personal and business. And so when you've got, these emails coming in about, oh, let me, learn about starting a podcast. Are you working on starting a podcast now? No, later? Unsubscribe. Don't even allow that into your mind right now. But it's not intuitive in this, this digital world that we're in. But when you put that analogy of the sausage, it's like, duh, you wouldn't be focusing on something else.
You wouldn't buy a course on how to become a farmer for clementines.
Right.
Crazy
Right.
analogy. I think you hit on the nail on the head. Sometimes clients are like, I don't understand how you make so much money from one-on-one doing what you do. And the thought I often have is, but I also don't think anybody understands how easy and simple my business is. All I have done, and the only thing I have offered and sold and focused on, this is my sausage, right? Is literally learning how to sell and create better and better and better and better sausage and to refine that. That is all I have done for 9 years. I mean, I've really tested other things,
Right.
but in that way, I think when you hear that, it's like, oh, well, it would almost be crazy if you didn't have the results you did, because I have just been so laser focused on one goal and one thing. And that is like, if anybody wants a secret to success, like that's the secret to success.
Yeah.
What you focus on does expand. It's just most of us hear that and think, oh, but I'm going to focus on that. Like what you're saying, we're going to focus on all of these different things. And then it's, then your light beam is really diffracted.
Yeah. Yeah. And I know that you used to have a podcast, and I loved your podcast, and you were like, you know what, this isn't giving me the results, and you cut it out.
And if this is helpful for people to hear, I loved that podcast, and it did give me results. It actually brought clients. It just, so did my live streams in my Facebook group. It was serving the same function in my funnel, but live streams are basically free outside of my time for me to produce. A podcast is not free for me to produce. And it took a lot more time for me to record. And by cutting that, we freed up quite a bit of spend, the time to record, produce, and that opened up not only time, but a client spot for me. I loved it. Like when I bring it back in the future, but if I bring it back in the future, it's knowing that I'm lighting money and time on fire.
Right. So tell me about, one of the things that I notice with entrepreneurs is outsourcing can be a struggle, that they're afraid of somebody doing something not as good as they can, or, just this feeling of control and all of that. Tell me about how you approach outsourcing and the role that plays in your business.
Lots of thoughts come up here. I would not be able to run my business the way I do if I did not have support. I don't know. I probably could, but I would just be burnt out. I mean, in terms of like, I have a very full life outside of business, and I have an all one-on-one model. So for that to be possible, I definitely need support behind me. And so I'm very aware of that. So I think that helps me with the outsourcing, because I know if I want to have this business and be able to show up and fully support clients and not be burned out, if I don't have support, like everything breaks down. And so I think that makes it easier with the outsourcing. In terms of the control piece, I will say, like, just transparently, this was such a learning curve for me. I've had a team for about 6 years now, and bless my first VA's heart, I went through that learning curve with her. I'm excellent at hiring, delegating, running a team now, but I think there just is, most of us did not come into business to run and manage teams. And I think most of us who run businesses are control freaks. That's like both an asset and not an asset, and all the mindset stuff we just talked about. And so I've just really had to learn that people are going to screw up, and you are going to pay people to screw up to learn. But what I have to remember is I'm going to screw up too. And it's, look, people can do things better than, like, people on my team probably do things better than me, but the expectation that they are literally going to be better than me and that they are going to be perfect and I'm not, to me feels like such an unfair expectation. And I think when I've just really learned that, I'm like, well, I screw up things all the time on my own dime. And I think that has just really helped with the control piece. And I've just really seen it to be my job to onboard team and to teach them how I think about business and what I need. So their job is not to be perfect or to never make a mistake. Their job is for us to understand when a mistake happens. Is it a people or a process systems problem? How do we solve the right problem? And how do I help you understand what I need so you can best support me? And there's no
Mm.
freaking emergencies in business. So anything you break isn't that big of a deal anyway.
Nice. Now, I know you just did a live stream on Wednesday where you were talking about ChatGPT and how you trained it to use your voice and all. And so, so I know that you're using it to write content, but how else are you utilizing AI in your business in order to be able to, just as another assistant to outsource to?
Yeah, so I'll say, just to clarify for anyone, if they're wanting to use ChatGPT to save time, I'm not having it write content. I'm having it help me after I write content to refine it or to generate or to improve it. And so if I don't know, like, I think it's helping me save time in terms of like synthesizing ideas, or I don't have to test as much, like, because we can kind of like edit and refine. I think it's, and I just say that because I think otherwise our use of it as an assistant or tool in our business isn't always as productive as we want, at least at this stage of the AI. I use it a lot in my personal life, more for, and I share this a little bit in the live stream, but for things like coming up with a recipe, coming up with a shopping list. I do a VIP day and I have some client preferences. Can you help me in New York City? What are some locations that would be a really good fit for this? So I use it a lot for the same way I would a team member, if I can give you, I have to start the project. I have to iterate the idea. I need to give you all the information you need to best support me so that I can delegate to you. But then can you save me time on doing the implementation or the figuring it out or the searching and the research? And so that's kind of how I think about it in my personal life. Does that make sense?
Interesting. Yeah. I use it. I use it both personal and business. And I mean, like the other day, I had a call with a client and we built her schedule for the week, of when she's going to do what with her projects, just kind of organizing them. And I took the transcript from that and then her report to me of what she did and just fed it in and said, okay, analyze this. Where did she not, where was the discrepancy basically? And, what are some strategies for her to be able to be more on top of and I mean, it was just like, wow, that was amazing.
Yeah.
Another thing, I have an autoimmune disease and when I get flare-ups, I mean, my memory just goes to shit. And I just can't remember anything. And so things that I've learned, but I forget, like, let's say, a live stream that you did or something. I'm like, oh, there was some great, tips in there that I wanted to implement, but then I couldn't remember. But feeding that transcript in and then asking it, summarize the main points, and then give me the actions that I need to take. And then it's just right there for me because I think we're bombarded with so much information all the time, but it's not in a way that is effective to necessarily jot down a note of what action I'm going to take or something like that. And so I'm able to listen to a podcast or whatever on the go, or even, watch videos while I'm on the treadmill and not have to worry about capturing those ideas that I can go back later and get them.
It's really remarkable. I mean, I think it's like the applications are endless. I mean, I've used it to help me with accounting issues. I mean, I think there's just so much it's really able to do. But I think what you're speaking to and what I'm speaking to in different ways is it's still based on the user and what we input it and delegate to it. And it's kind of like the team conversation. If we're just expecting our team to be better than us and to be a perfect human or to know all the answers or to be mind readers, if we're expecting ChatGPT to be a mind reader or any AI, it's just I think I shared this on the live stream. I did a test. I gave a prompt to my ChatGPT and to my husband's. My ChatGPT I trained in my business and my voice, and I fed it tons of content, and I've given it a lot of feedback on what I like, what I don't like. It gave two completely different outputs. And so I think even with all the things you're saying here, you're still being a really great user with it to help. And I think with still being efficient, it kind of goes back to the mindset and the strategy piece. It's still based on what are we doing with these strategies and tools.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Yeah, I use the analogy a lot of like, if you have a Harvard MBA working as an intern for you, they still, even all that they know, without you giving them direction, they're not going to be able to do any kind of a project for you that's going to meet your expectations.
1,000%. And they're not mind readers, and every business is different. I mean, there's and on and on. And I think the ChatGPT example is such a great example. It has all of these capabilities, but if you just expect it to be a mind reader and don't give it a lot of direction, it's going to give you what it gave my husband's when it gave it to as opposed to what it gave me.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the most common prompt that I use is like, thanks, that's a great start, but and then and then it like totally takes it into account, and then, as you said, it learns and remember. At least I don't know how much the free plan remembers, but being on the paid plan, it
I have
remembers
the paid plan, and I ask it to remember certain things. I don't know on the free plan, but on the paid, I will say, these are the things I want you to remember. These because I use it a lot to edit and make my content more concise because I'm quite long-winded, and that would just take me a long time. But I give it feedback on, these are the things I want us to edit for. These are the things I don't want you to edit for. These are the things that are important. Can you please remember this? And it will. You can see the little thing. It's like memory update, so it will remember those pieces.
Yeah, yeah. I don't like to see. I don't think it does a good job of, oh, write me, a blog post about such and such, because it's generic content.
1,000%.
But I have unique perspectives that are mine, but I have, it takes me a long time to be able to craft that into something that is easily consumable by somebody. And so I find it a very effective tool to be able to take a concept and then, put it into easily digestible wording.
I think it's great for that. And you're still starting that and originating that. And then that's also going to, not to take us on a different conversation, but then that's content that is still personal to you and your thought leadership. So it's going to convert better. And I think that's the big difference, giving it a prompt versus, I haven't synthesized this all, but here are all my concepts. Can you turn this into a piece of content, right? And then going from there, two really different approaches, and going to give you two really different outcomes.
Yeah. What I'm looking for is something that I can have my notes, like just content that I've like raw notes of, here's my perspective on all these things. And I have those that it can query from those, not from the web, right? But, strategies for managing email or whatever that can be pulled from that. And I haven't found a good.
I fed that all to, it takes a pocket of time, but I just fed that all to ChatGPT, and I said, I'm giving you this all so you can learn my ideas, basically, and can you index it and give me different concepts based on it? So you can definitely index.
The problem is it also runs out of memory, and then it starts forgetting stuff, and then it'll start writing stuff off. So you have to also be
I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think it's definitely not a in place of tool. And I think that's the piece we have to remember. And I think for anything where we're trying to save time, we have to be very mindful sometimes, like, is this actually saving time in a way that's efficient and creating results, or otherwise, like, there's no point in doing the thing anyway. It's still a tool.
Yeah. And I tell you, here's where I find it really saves time. Emails that are not content to your list, but that are emotionally sensitive, whether a customer complains, or whether you bought something and you're unhappy, or you have to write a difficult email to a family member, because we have this, here's what I want to say, but that's too harsh. And you get stuck, and you can spend hours trying to craft that. And being able to just blah into ChatGPT of, here's what I want to say, and it can spit it out in this very nice, respectful way. That is the writing that I find saves the most amount of time.
I could say, I think there's no ChatGPT doesn't have any emotions. So it can take, it's the
Right.
same as I have my team member handle certain things in our business.
Right.
I've crafted the templates, but there's no emotionality for a team member to
Yeah.
send for an email. So I think in that way it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And because I work in productivity, for me, it is about how I can use it to save time. And like I'm the president of the HOA, and I had promised to rewrite our CCNRs and put it off because frankly, it wasn't a priority for me. And it's like, oh crap, our annual meeting's coming up. I said I was going to do this. And I mean, it would have been 2 weeks worth of work to go through it all. And I used 3 different AIs, and in 2 days I was able to craft them. And I mean, it was just unbelievable the amount of time savings of looking at the regulations, analyzing our current ones, and then crafting stuff in order to get across certain, here's what I'm trying to accomplish, and coming out with the words. So I think that when you step outside of your expectations of it and just really work on figuring out how to use it for yourself, and like you said, you have to, not the first result that comes back. I've saved a lot of time.
Yeah, I think it's a great tool.
Yeah. So speaking of saving time, like tell me about, how you protect your time. What types of things do you do to manage boundaries to your time? I mean, having a one-on-one model, I mean, you're going to have clients who are going to want, more of your time and check-in and stuff like that. And you want to have a life. So what types of things do you do?
Maybe let me know if there's something more you want to hear, but I think I've just really gotten clear on what my boundaries are and when I'm available and when I'm not available. And something I always tell my clients, because I offer quite a bit of support between sessions when I want to, but I let my clients know they don't have to worry about holding, I mean, they need to be boundaried, but I will hold my boundaries around that so that they don't have to worry. But I have scheduled times I check in. For example, I use Basecamp between sessions with clients. I have scheduled times I check in with that. I don't keep it on my phone. I don't keep it open on my computer. So when I'm going in, I want to be mindful and present for my client, but I'm there because this is a time I want to be there and a time I have blocked off for that. But then that also means when I'm at the gym or I'm enjoying dinner with my husband, I'm not getting things and notifications and I'm not going to check it.
Right. So what I'm hearing is you use an app that is not commingled with something that you use for your personal life. So you don't even see it, because I know, like I have a client who her business is website design, and her clients text her and she's got to look at her text messages because her father or mother or daughters might be texting her. And so she can't just totally not check her text messages, but yet it allows clients to get through. So I love that strategy.
Yeah. And something that comes up for me. So 2 things, to all of my clients, I mean, they can do whatever they want, but I highly recommend having a different place for client and teams than everything else, because otherwise you do have to constantly, like everything you're speaking to. I think it also makes it more likely that things are going to fall between the cracks for clients, which we don't want to have happen. The other thing, if this is helpful to hear in terms of kind of like speaking of boundaries in that way, I've also just trained everyone in my life. It sounds horrible, but to know that I am just not instantly available unless there's an emergency. My phone is on 24-hour do not disturb mode.
Me too.
My husband is appalled at the number of read ones I have and left unread. I have days where I open up my phone and there's 80 unread text messages, and I may never read them, or it might take me 3 weeks, like a week to respond, depending on what the thing is. And so I'm just really big on, again, I just know where my time needs to go, priorities. And when I'm working, I'm really big on the boundaries of, I work from home. I am the breadwinner. I've retired my husband. He is at home, but he knows when I'm working. I'm not available to talk to. I'm not available to check in with. I'm not, because I am working and not like that is a boundary I have. So I think all of those things they're simple things, but they make a big difference.
Yeah, but you're right. They are simple, but they make a lot of difference. And people are horrified. They feel like they don't have a choice. They have to look at them. Like I turn off the notifications so that I don't even have a notification if I have unread messages. That it's one of the settings in there. Is it the badges is what they're called. Like you don't even have to show them. And so I mean I might check, you know, and it could be hours and hours. And we have a group thread with our household, and then the neighbors next to us and the neighbors on the other side. All three of us, we're always talking and carrying on and stuff. And it's so funny that when I check in, it'll be, you know, hours later and they've all gone back and forth and I've like totally missed out on it. And it's like, you know what? But it's okay. You know, and you have to be okay with that, because there is a cost to always being engaged with that and never missing out. You can't have a business like you have if you are constantly, getting every message and being the first to respond and all of that. The two are mutually exclusive.
1,000%. And not just a business, you can't have peace of mind if that is existing. And it's just wild to me. I mean, I will leave things unread and not reply for weeks, and maybe I should or shouldn't, but I also know if something's important, someone will reach out to me. It's amazing how much really isn't important, but how much we think is important that we need to respond or reply to, and just how much peace and capacity and space to be mindful, to enjoy, because we're not just talking about being efficient, but I'm thinking about if I go to dinner with my husband and my stepson and I'm either checking those things, or they've done studies on this. If you even know you have unread messages, that takes up brain space and is a distraction. So if I'm even aware of that, then I'm not present and I'm literally missing the moments. My stepson's gonna be in college any second, like it's like these years are gonna fly by. I'm missing all of those moments because I'm in my head. And so if this is helpful for anyone to hear, one of the things I've really thought about is, because all of these things we do, at the end of the day, they're responses to other things. Like when I used to check things more, right? It's an anxious attachment. Right. And so, but I just think about, like, I just want to be so mindful of, when is my trauma talking? When is my anxiety talking? When is it leading my life and my business? When am I giving my power away to that? And then when is Kim, who's more neutral? And I just know when I'm doing those things, it's not wrong or bad. I just touch myself. I'm like, where is this coming from? Oh, I'm in a weird pattern where I'm checking Basecamp a whole bunch. And it's not because my business or my clients need me to. It's because I'm anxious about something. And I'm trying to, like, it's the anxious attachment.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I talk to my clients a lot about the fact that when they feel overwhelmed, they have so much to do that they struggle to focus and actually do anything, because when they go to work on something, they'll like remember something else they have to do, and their mind is just spinning and it's hard for them to do anything. The worst thing they can do is check email or their text messages, because all they're doing is adding more in their mind of like, oh, don't forget to do that. Don't forget to do that. Where if you don't check, you don't know that there's something else there for you to do.
I agree with that. I think sometimes we use it as a way to avoid.
Yes. Oh, totally.
We totally know that that's going to happen. And then we can avoid the discomfort of overwhelm or sifting through the thing we need to do. So it's kind of going back to our other conversation. And I know you work on clients with this, but these things are simple. And then sort of the reason they feel hard to implement aren't always so simple.
Yes. So what about, what strategies, tools, or whatever do you use in order to help you to stay focused when you know you've got that important work to do? You've got, content you need to write or whatever it is. What do you do to help you to stay focused?
This one I might not have the best answer for, and I might get a lot of hate for this. I don't have a hard time focusing. Like that is just not my problem at all. Like I'm a hyper focuser, if that's a word. If anything, I need reminders to let me know you've got something else coming up that you need to kind of make time to shift gears for, or like that you're going to be late for. But I love my work. I have no problem focusing. If you just left me, like it's just very easy for me to go
Great.
into that. I will say I'm really big though on minimizing distractions and
Mhm.
really big on minimizing interruptions, kind
Mhm.
of what we were talking about, but even to the degree of,
Yeah.
I love you, husband, but
Yeah. Yeah.
if the door is closed, like, please don't come in to check on, like, even to see if I want a cup of coffee, because
Yeah. Yeah.
that's going to interrupt my flow and like
Yeah.
my
Right.
thought
Right.
processing.
Yeah. But I think that part of the reason that you don't have problems focusing is because of the other things that you're doing, that you have minimized. You're not trying to do 100 things. And I think that that's a lot of what causes the difficulty people have focusing. They've got too many projects they're working on at once. They're, getting the notifications. They're just not willing to put in place any of those boundaries that you've put in place.
I think you're absolutely right. And this actually makes me think maybe this is like more practical because I'm like, I don't have a tangible answer for this. But I think the other thing that comes up for me is I pre-decide and know what I'm going to spend my time on and what's a priority. So I'm not sitting down on my computer thinking, what do I need to do today?
Right.
Or what piece of content do I need to write, or what does my business need? Because that's a whole decision fatigue thing that will create the overwhelm. And I don't come to an empty blank sheet of paper ever.
Yeah.
Like, that will just make any of us spin out. So I think that actually also really helps me focus when I go to work. I know exactly what I'm going to work on and use that time for. So
Yes.
I think that is a quite a big piece of it. So I think you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah.
And then the boundaries piece as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that all the things that I tell my clients that you should do, you're doing, and you are proof positive that it's not that you have too much to do, or it's that you're choosing to do. The universe isn't acting on you. It's about you taking control and setting things up in a way that you can have a business that is very successful without it totally consuming you.
And being very simple. I think, because I think it's not, I am good at focus. I do think I have a ability to focus, but I would easily be distracted and not able to focus because I've had times like that in my past. If I didn't have the boundaries, and if I didn't have a simple business, and if I was sitting down and thinking I needed to do 17 different things in that moment, I'm human. I would be overwhelmed as well. It's just easy to avoid that when you only have one thing you're supposed to do on that day, that time that you have allotted for it. And you put a bunch of things in to set yourself up for success.
Well, I have really enjoyed our conversation, and I think people listening to this are really going to see some possibilities of, some changes that they can make in order to have a life that is calmer and more successful, both at the same time. And so, is there anything else that you would like to share? And and also tell us where they can, connect with you and learn more about you.
Thank you for hosting this conversation. I think it's such an important one that we just don't realize. And I just really love the work you are doing. So I just want to reflect that back for everyone, because I have known you for a while. And just as a business owner, I just know how important what you do and that combination you bring in with the productivity and the mindset. It's like, without that, it's just really tough to run a business and get results. And so I just love what you're doing. Love the conversation. Just want to say that before anything. And then, if anybody listening to this wants to find out more about me, I would always love to connect with you. Feel free to DM me. I'm quite an open person. I would love to hear if you had any takeaways. I hang out mostly on Instagram right now. I've got my Facebook group, but I'm most active there. So feel free to come hang out with me. And is it helpful if I offer a freebie for everybody? Is that something that?
Yeah, I think that would be great.
Okay, we just ran a masterclass called the Simplified Scaling Blueprint, and it walks through essentially the 5 components you need to make 20K months or more consistently and profitably. So I will give you a private link to that. It's completely free. It has a really great playbook that goes with it. And part of it is talking about time and team. So I think it'll really reinforce some of the pieces we talked about here, but also some of the mindset strategy pieces that go into that. So I'd love to offer that to everybody who feels like that might be a good, helpful resource.
Great. I will be sure to include a link to that.
Cool.
All right. Well, thank you so much for your time. I have really enjoyed talking with you.
Thank you so much for having me.